Okay, so there's the cotangent. We already did that. Now we have the secant and the cosecant. So basically what you're seeing here, the only part of this graph that is the cosecant is the blue. This black line is the sine. Okay? Some people like to draw in the sine graph first because it helps them. I personally never do, but you can see here that wherever the sine is 0, because the cosecant is the reciprocal, that's where you will have a vertical asymptote. Everywhere the sine is 0, you have a vertical asymptote. Okay? And then, whenever your sine is maximum, your cosecant is minimum. Who can tell me why that is? Tell me something that's a word that you understand. Like, don't just throw words out at me that you don't understand. Why is it the opposite? So why is the maximum of the sine the minimum of the cosecant? When you answer me, try to answer me with things that you have knowledge of, so you can explain it. Because if you can't explain it, you don't really understand it. Do you know what I mean? I'm really trying to have you learn how to learn math. Okay, but so the flip or the opposite of any number is always, so what are you saying? Talk about fractions. Talk about it in terms of fractions that you understand. Because the flip and the opposite are really, we're talking about, just talk about fractions, not with trigonometry. What does that mean, though? Why is it true? Okay, so here's what I want. Here's what I want to see. Like, this is more of an understanding. So if I have a fraction, right? Right. So when I have a fraction, when x is 1, just like what Anka's saying, when y is, she's saying when y is 1, but I'm saying when x is 1, then y equals 1, right? And then when now the largest that the sign can be is 1, so everything under that is a fraction, right? So what happens when x is 1/2? Y equals what? Y equals 2. So literally what's happening is, because the largest value that y is equal to is 1, everything less than that is a fraction. And because it's a fraction, it gets larger and larger when you take the reciprocal of a fraction, right? So that means the minimum value it can be is 1. There's no way it could be 1/2. For it to be 1/2, that would mean that the sign would be able to be 2. Right? Okay, does everybody understand what I'm saying? So if you understand that, then you can see why, like, let me just get to another screen and we'll start graphing it. Okay, let me. Okay, so what's the first thing we're always going to do whenever we graph a function such as this? What do I mean by a function such as this? It has asymptotes. Excellent. Very good. Okay, so where are my asymptotes? So this is cosecant, and cosecant is equal to 1 over sine. So when sine is 0, very good. So sine is 0 at 0, perfect, 0. I'm not going to make a fancy asymptote, it takes too long. Pi, 2 pi, minus pi. Okay? And then, do I have any zeros? Do I have any zeros? I don't have any zeros. This can never be 0. Because you have to make the numerator 0, but the numerator is 1. So you can't make 1 into a 0, right? So there's no zeros. So the next thing I want to do is I want to graph the minimum of the positive side of the graph, right? Where is that going to occur? Where is the minimum of the cosecant going to occur? At 1, well, where? Where is it on the x part? When sine equals 1, you're right. So when sine equals 1, or this is not, I guess I got it. Let me move that over a little. Okay. So yes, when the sine is pi over 2, that's the minimum value of the cosecant because it's the maximum of the sine, right? And then we know it goes up in both sides after that, right? So now where's the maximum of the negative part going to be? At 3 pi over 2, exactly. It's when it's negative. It's when the sign is negative 1. So it looks like that. And then of course it just repeats. Oh, sorry. It just repeats everywhere after that. Yes, Stacy. Sure. So we know that the sine, so let's just talk about the sine of x, okay? So the sine of x, what's the range of the sine? Do you know what I mean? Do you know what the question is? Yeah, the y values. It has a certain range. Can it be all real numbers? Yes. The range of the sine is it's got to be between -1 and 1. Okay? Does everybody realize that? Okay. So because of that, because of this, that means that if I take the cosecant, so 1 over the sine, right? Now, if my minimum value is -1, then 1 over sine is equal to, and this is a cosecant, So cosecant of x is equal to 1 over sine. So let's talk about when it's minus 1. So when sine is minus 1, what is cosecant? Minus 1, right? Can sine of x be minus 2? No, so we're not going to even ask about that, right? Because if it could be minus 2, it would be a different kind of graph. But since now it has to get, minus 1 is my smallest, so now what is it when it's minus 1/2? Because that's between minus 1 and 1, right? So what if sine is minus 1/2? What's cosecant? Which no, take the sign away. It's not the sign of; it's the sign equals. So when sine of x is equal to minus 1/2, the cosecant of x equals what? Come on, guys, basic fractions. We're not going to get to the things we need to do. Quick. Minus 1 over 1/2. What's minus 1 over 1/2? No. Minus 2. Okay? Minus 1/10. It's going to be minus 10. Minus 1/1000. It's going to be minus 1,000. Okay? So minus 1,000. So what happens is the smaller the fraction gets, the bigger the value is going to get. And that's why it does that thing. That's why it does this part here where it goes up. And that's why this is the minimum value. That's why this is the minimum of the positive side and the maximum of the negative side. Okay?